Yo, I think this is like fourth or fifth video out of well, we probably gonna do seven. I don't know. We'll get into it. We'll see how it's going. Anyways, let's go.
I think Dragon Ball Z ruined Goten and Trunks. These two very popular characters are some of my least favorites at this point in my life. Now I know that kind of sounds ridiculous. How could the series that introduced these two be the same series that ruined them? It's not like Yamcha, where he was a crucial part of the story in Dragon Ball and then became an afterthought in Dragon Ball Z, or even Krillin, where in Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, he was a character whose decisions held a lot of weight. Well, in Super, he's a police officer. And to be honest, that should say enough when it comes to seeing how far he's fallen down the totem pole. But Goten and Trunks were introduced and ruined in the exact same saga that they were introduced in. And the main reason why? Fusion. In Dragon Ball Z, Goten and Trunks had the potential to become standout characters in their own right. One was the main timeline version of a fan favorite, and the other was a carbon copy of arguably the most popular character in shonen history. Both were introduced during the Buu saga with incredible promise. Goten and Trunks represented the next generation of Saiyan fighters. Their power levels were astounding for their age, both achieving Super Saiyan transformations long before anyone thought possible. However, instead of allowing these young warriors to grow and develop individually, the series quickly funneled all of their potential into their fusion, Gotenks. This move not only reduced their individual significance, but also ensured that their most memorable contribution would be tied to what has kind of become a gimmick rather than their own character arcs. Fusion in itself was an exciting and novel concept when it was introduced, and Gotenks embodied that energy. The fusion multiplied the strength of both Goten and Trunks into a single warrior, combining their personalities into a cocky, overconfident, and somewhat comedic character. Gotenks had his moments. His battle against Majin Buu, despite his playful nature, showcased the potential for the fusion to be a real threat. But this very reliance on fusion immediately sidelined Goten and Trunks as individuals. Once they fused, their distinct characteristics were essentially erased, making them more memorable as Gotenks than as separate characters. This set the stage for their lasting narrative issues, as their significance in the story became inseparable from their ability to fuse. But I'll tell you what makes this even more frustrating. Even in moments where the two might have contributed individually, their roles were overshadowed by other characters. After Gotenks' fusion ran out and the boys defused during the Buu saga, Gohan quickly swooped in to take center stage. Gohan's role as a fighter who received the Supreme Kai's power-up made him the obvious choice to face off against Buu, which left Goten and Trunks pushed to the background. There was no real effort to give them any individual characterization or growth in this crucial moment, as the spotlight quickly shifted to Gohan's reemergence as a major player. This would have been a good moment for Goten and Trunks to get some development that they desperately needed. Now we all know that the two would have lost if they went up against Majin Buu, but wouldn't have been a good chance to see them with their backs up against the wall? I mean, how many times did Gohan find himself completely outclassed when he was a kid? It never stopped him from fighting his hardest and tapping into power he'd never seen before. That's what kind of made fans grow closer to Gohan. But anyway, Goten and Trunks weren't given the opportunity to evolve as standalone characters because once their fusion ran out, the narrative focused to more established fighters. Rather than taking the time to showcase Goten and Trunks as capable young warriors who could one day live up to the legacies of their fathers, they were written as mere vehicles for Gotenks. This left them feeling hollow, as if they were only significant when they could fuse, which severely limited their future potential. But then here's an aspect that I don't hear people talk about often. For nearly 2 decades following the Buu saga, Goten and Trunks continued to suffer from this lack of individual development. In 1996, Dragon Ball Z ended. This was only a year and a half after their introduction, and unfortunately, Dragon Ball GT did not do Goten and Trunks any favors either. We all know that from 1996 to 2013, there was no canon Dragon Ball content, but in that time, fans could go back and watch their favorite moments from their favorite characters. Even people like myself who weren't alive in the 90s could go back and grow closer with certain characters. But what was there to latch on to when it came to Goten and Trunks? Nothing. But even now, their appearances in Dragon Ball Super and other related media are few and often treated with a comedic tone. Any serious potential they had as the next generation of Saiyans was wasted. Their fusion remains the most important thing about them, and outside of that, there was little reason to explore their characters. This reliance on fusion as their defining trait stunted their growth. So at this point, it's silly to even think of them as individuals who could rise to the level of Goku, Vegeta, or even Gohan, even though they started so far ahead. Trunks and Goten's individual identities have faded into the background, and any narrative opportunities to showcase them as standalone warriors were missed, and I honestly can't see that door opening for them again. The longer the series has gone on without addressing this imbalance, the more their characters become dependent on their fusion for relevance. The worst part is that Goten and Trunks weren't given any meaningful challenges or struggles to help them grow independently. Gotenks was always their easy way out. Now, I'd be ignorant not to mention that in recent years, Dragon Ball Super has provided some opportunities to explore Goten and Trunks again, but these moments have done little to undo the damage of the past. The superhero arc, for instance, gave Goten and Trunks a bit more time in the spotlight, but their development paled in comparison to that of other characters in the franchise. While the arc did allow them to step out of the shadow of Gotenks for brief moments, it didn't give them the depth or the emotional complexity that characters like Piccolo, Vegeta, or Gohan received. Their characterization in that arc felt a little superficial, more like a callback to a previous role Gohan had in high school, rather than a serious attempt to explore their potential. Even though there were attempts to give them moments outside of Gotenks in the superhero arc, their fusion still loomed large in the background, at least it did for me. So instead of evolving into fully realized characters, they remain stuck in a cycle where their only major contribution is their ability to fuse. So even though the arc did give them some development, I won't just sit here and say it was none at all, it didn't deliver in a meaningful way that could set Goten and Trunks apart as individual warriors. Other characters in the Dragon Ball franchise have had entire arcs dedicated to their growths, struggles, and transformations. Goku had his journey from a naive fighter to a universe-saving hero. Vegeta had his complex arc of redemption and personal growth. Even Gohan had his moments of doubt and eventual rediscovery of his potential. But Goten and Trunks? Their growth was halted the moment Gotenks became their defining feature, and the series never gave them the space to break free from that narrative limitation. If I could put into one sentence how fusion has ruined Gotenks, I'd say it like this. Goten and Trunks continue to get older, but their characters are stuck in time. They were introduced with so much potential, but fusion halted their personal journeys before they even began, really. In a series known for its character evolution, this lack of development is especially glaring to me. They had the power, the family, and the potential to be the next generation of Saiyans to root for, but that was all swept aside in favor of a gimmick that has now become the defining aspect of their characters. Fusion is cool, both Metamoran and Potara, but for these two Saiyans, it became the very thing that defined and ruined their characters. By making their fusion their only important contribution to the Buu saga, Dragon Ball Z set a precedent that has haunted their legacy for nearly 30 years. Instead of becoming the next great warriors in the Saiyan lineage, they became footnotes in the larger Dragon Ball story, with Gotenks as their only claim to fame. Without the chance to grow independently, I think Goten and Trunks remain stuck in a narrative loop, unable to break free from the fusion that has come to define them. It's a real tragedy because Goten and Trunks had everything they needed to succeed as standalone characters. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this. Do you think Trunks and Goten can be important again? I don't know. But with that being said, if you haven't already, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this. I want to give a shout out to @KingKaiBallinXN5.
Alright, that's gonna be the end of that video. Let's get right into the next one. I'm gonna see y'all then.